Hello, it is Mac here, and today I'm talking about the amount of supercars that we saw in the DLCs of 2016 for GT Online. And I want to talk about this in relation to past years in GT Online and how many supercars were shipped with the game and how 2016 got to the point where we are seeing so many supercars in 2016. So of course it is 2017 now, but just recently we actually saw another supercar added to GT Online, which is the Itali GTB. So this was added in the Import-Export DLC, and even before that DLC came out. And I was kind of wanting to make this video even before that DLC, because we have seen so many supercars in 2016. I want to go through them all in this video, but first I want to talk about the past years in GT Online, and how many supercars we've gotten that were shipped with the game, as well as what were added in the 2 years prior to 2016 in GT Online. In 2013, of course, GTA 5 and GT Online came out. And in that, there were 7 supercars that shipped with the game. Only 7. But then it was actually kind of a while until we got our first supercar in GT Online, which was the Turismo R. And that was added in the business update in 2014. And in about 2 months after that, in May, we saw the Zentorno added in the High Life update. Then it was an entire year in GT Online until we saw the next supercar in GT Online. So that was 2 supercars added in 2014. And there were actually a lot of updates in 2014. It's not like these were the only 2 updates. And then in 2015, we saw another 2 supercars, the Osiris and the T20. And these were added in the Ill-Gotten Gains Part 1 update and in the Ill-Gotten Gains Part 2 update. And like 2014, there wasn't a shortage of DLCs in 2015. It's just that only 2 of those DLCs only added 1 supercar each, and that was it. So if you take the cars that were shipped with the game, plus 2 years of DLC, you would only get 11 supercars in GT Online. But now let's take a look at the past 12 months in GT Online. And this is ever since January of 2016 till early January of 2017. And if you add up all the unique supercars in GT Online, you would total out to 13 that were added in 2016. And that's including the Banshee 900R and the Sultan RS. I don't know if you technically count those because those were sports cars back before you got the custom variant, but I'd still count those. And even then, if you discredit those, and you only talk about the completely new supercars, you'd still get as many supercars this year than the past 2 years of DLC, plus the cars that were shipped with the game. That's 11 right there. But if you count the Sultan RS and the Banshee 900R, then that would be 13 in 2016, plus an extra 2 if you count the custom variants of the Nero and the Itali GTB that just recently came out. So you have basically the original version that you buy off the website, but if you take it into Benny's, you do get the custom variant, plus another one if you count the new Rocket Voltic. I wouldn't count that because that's a Pegasus vehicle, but even then, I think it's actually in the supercar category, and it's just a different version of the Voltic that was shipped with the game. And like I said with the other years, this isn't like there was an abundance of DLCs in GT Online. I'm not sure the exact number, and I'm not going to go through all the DLCs and talk about which ones did add supercars. However, I don't feel like this year had more DLCs than the past. It was like something like 5 or 6 DLCs in GT Online. But the thing is that has changed is that each update this year that added at least a supercar added multiple supercars. Back in the day, if you got an update that had a supercar, there was only 1 supercar in there, and there was only 4 total updates in 2014 and 2015 that added a supercar, and that was it. That they didn't add multiple supercars in the DLC. But in 2016, we saw 3 DLCs. But in 2016, we saw 2 DLCs that added 4 total supercars. And then we also saw in the Cunning Stunts DLC, we saw 3 supercars there. So that's insane to think about, that we've been seeing 4 supercars in 1 update in GT Online. And I feel like that's a tad bit too much. And I want to talk about that why in this video. And my main reason is because now it's at the point where the supercars aren't special anymore. And don't get me wrong, I love supercars in GT Online. They're like my favorite class pretty much. I always love whenever we get a supercar, and I still do, enjoy a new supercar in GT Online, but it has definitely decreased in the past. And it felt like back in the day, back in 2014 or 2015, whenever we got a supercar, it was so hyped up, and it was just so special to get, and because it was so rare. We didn't get supercars that often, and there weren't that many already in the game. But then in 2016, that's kind of changed, because now we've been seeing, at least, in Finance and Felony and Import-Export, we've been seeing 2 supercars that release, day one, whenever the DLC comes out. Then they've also been releasing and sort of drip feeding these other supercars that are added in those updates, but are just held off into, a few weeks later. And even those vehicles, I don't care much about. Maybe there's a few, like the X80 Proto, or maybe the Nero, or vehicles like that I do kind of care about. But then there's other ones, like the 811, or the sort of the new Itali GTB, that I haven't even bought at all in GT Online. And it's mainly just because I have so many supercars already. These other ones, while they may look nice, or they may be kind of nice in races, to me, I don't find the point in purchasing them, because I already have so many other supercars. And that's the main problem, is that these supercars nowadays are so similar. And sure, that was the case back in the day, but back in the day there wasn't 11 new supercars that were added in a year. It was only 2. And then there weren't even that many that were in the game already, before those DLCs. But now, it's like there's so many supercars in GT Online, and I kind of get why Rockstar is doing it, on one hand, because, of course, if you have, many supercars, they can charge a lot of money for them without many people complaining. And supercars have gone up in prices in GT Online. That's just, a fact. Back in the day, some of the best supercars were like $700,000, or sometimes even less. But nowadays, they're over $2 million, and that's something to think about, is that, the vehicle prices have gone up, and there's also even more supercars now. So I get why they do it, but at the same time, do people actually spend more money whenever there's less supercars? Maybe this is just me, but out of all the supercars in GT Online that were added in 2016, I've only bought about half of them. I think, out of the 13 unique ones that were added, I only bought about half. And a lot of them I've actually sold, like the Reaper, the FMJ, and the Sultan RS. These I bought, but in recent months, predating other DLCs, I've sold them. And so, maybe it's just me, but whenever Finance and Felony came out, or whenever Import-Export DLC came out, and, even Cunning Stunts, I only bought about 1 or 2 of the supercars that were added in these DLCs. Whenever Cunning Stunts came out, there were 3 supercars in there, but I only ever bought 1, and I feel like a large number of people also only bought 1 or 2, and not all 3, mainly because all 3 of them were very similar. Sure, they have different looks, different customization and all, but for performance-wise and stuff, and a lot of supercars that are added these days are also just very similar. So if you have one supercar, let's say you have the Tempesta, buying a different one, like the FMJ or the Reaper, you're not going to get that big of a difference. Sure, one may be better in traction, or one may be better in top speed, or, some supercars may be better in certain scenarios. But if you have one, the other ones don't change that much. And I feel like that's the other problem. And I feel like the reason for that is they don't want supercars to be super imbalanced compared to the other classes in the game. And you may be wondering, why is that? Because, in races, you can only have one class of cars, so everybody will be on an even playing field, right? Even if all the supercars had, double the amount of speed of the fastest sports car, then that's still balanced, right? If all the supercars were like that. But then it's like, whenever you consider free mode, I don't feel like they want everybody to be around in supercars, but that's kind of the case right now. At least if you, want to be the fastest in GT Online, you're either on a motorcycle, on one of the faster sports cars, or in a supercar. And I feel like they don't want supercars to be insanely fast, so that, the other, sedans and coupes and stuff, they're not, like, terribly, worse than the supercars. I mean, they are worse, but not, insanely so. And honestly, in retrospective, I feel like Rockstar should kind of tone down on these supercars. And this is coming from somebody who, like I said, I love supercars in GT Online, but I feel like there's too many at this point. or they're coming out so much. And I feel like if they went back to, you know, 1, maybe 2 supercars in an update, that would be much better than releasing 3 or 4 in an update. And I feel like that's just a tad bit too much, because at this point, I feel like a lot of people, they're either bored of the supercars in GT Online, they don't buy them anymore because there's so many that are coming out, it's hard to keep up, or they just don't have enough money. And don't get me wrong, that's what Rockstar wants. You know, they want you to buy star cards and stuff because you don't have any money. But at the same time, do people just not care enough about these supercars because there's so many? You know, there's this oversaturation of new supercars that maybe it's too much. You know, especially whenever they release all these supercars in one day. You know, let's say somebody wanted to buy both the Tempesta or the Ocelot Penetrator. Well, maybe they only buy one because the other one's kind of very similar. Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments. Do you disagree with me, and do you still want, you know, tons new supercars and you love how many we've gotten in 2016? Or do you think it's a little bit too much? Because like I said, we've gotten more supercars in 2016 than the cars that shipped with the game and came out in 2 years of DLC. So let me know your thoughts on that in the comments. Do you want more, or do you think that the Rockstar should tone it down in the future? Or what do you think Rockstar could do to have all these new supercars, but also make them unique so that people care about them? Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments. Hope you enjoy. Feedback is appreciated. I'll see you guys in the next video.